Good evening and welcome to the April 3rd meeting of the Richmond Water and Sewer Commission. Before we begin, would anybody care to make a public statement? Anybody in the audience?
Kara's just now connecting. Maybe in 10 seconds there may be comment.
Welcome, Kara.
Hey, can you hear me okay?
We can.
Beautiful.
As you were logging in, I was just asking if anybody cared to make a public comment, and then I thought I'd wait until you were logged in to see if you did.
Well, I appreciate that. No, I'll save my comments for during your different subject matters, if that's okay.
That's okay. So absent public comments, Josh, Board, are there any additions or deletions to tonight's agenda? Okay, moving into the warrant agenda. Josh, you have an announcement.
Yes. So I'm going to be promoting Steve Cote in the Water and Wastewater Department. He is currently an operator in training involved in the World Water Association apprenticeship program, but due in part to the department being very short-staffed over the last number of months and his mechanical knowledge that Cote brings to the position, he's recently performed at a level more fitting to a lead mechanical operator. This is also based partly on some feedback from the administrator of the association's program that he's doing really well in the program and brings a lot to the table. He currently has a provisional wastewater license and has passed the Class 3 water test, but he's not eligible to be fully licensed in water test. Sorry, in Class 3 until he gets a year and a half of service time. But because of his experience that he brings to this and what he's been able to do for the department while short-staffed, they're going to be promoting him to lead mechanical operator, which means he'll be moving up to grade A, step 6 on the pay grid, and moving into more of that compensation band rather than operator in training. So he'll get a bump or a step every July. If he obtains licenses, he'll get a step for that.
There he is now.
And he'll be there on the pay grade, and I think it's well deserved. He's done a really good job.
And you'll have your year and a half this fall?
October.
Okay.
Yeah. So then he would be eligible to go up another step on the grid and be fully or water 3 license at that point. Yep.
Congratulations and thank you.
I relayed to Josh that I didn't start this with the intent on getting a raise. I started it with the intent on making Richmond better.
Well, we want to keep you. That. We want to keep you because, as you know, the demand for trained and competent water employees is pretty high. So
it is.
We want to recognize. We want to recognize what you've done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we thank you. We want this to be a mutually beneficial relationship, and you're certainly proving yourself to us. So we want to keep you around and happy. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, are we ready to talk budget? Sounds like we are. I guess
there's a couple of things I could set up with that if you like.
Yeah.
So including the packet, you'll find draft FY24 budget. We also included a spreadsheet that has some information as far as liquid net assets go for water and wastewater, as well as septage. In reviewing that again over the weekend, I talked to one of the commissioners offline about some questions about how the liquid net assets are put together. And in that conversation, talked to him about this was something that we put together a couple of years ago as the commission was looking into what are essentially the unassigned funds of water and wastewater. And that was spurred by a conversation at the Selectboard level about unassigned and restricted funds for general fund and highway. At the time, we reached out to Sullivan and Powers, which is our auditing firm at the time, and asked them, well, how do we really calculate that for water and wastewater? They relayed that it's a bit more complicated because of the way that the funds are set up as a proprietary fund versus municipal accounting for the general fund. But helped us create a spreadsheet that we've since tried to continue to update every year to give the commission a bit of direction on where we're at with unassigned funds. I do understand that spreadsheet probably needs to be looked at again. We also probably need to add some more description to it so that everybody understands exactly what we're looking at here. So What I've done is Connie and I have reached out to our current auditors to ask the question again. How would you help us present this? So I think tonight is probably best to not look at that. Connie and I will meet with our HR this week, figure out how they would best guide us on presenting this and finding these numbers. Because unfortunately, at least according to Sullivan Powers, it wasn't as easy as pointing to a number in the audit, which is what you can do for the general fund and for highway. Well, it's right here. But in water and wastewater, it's a little different. So we'll ask our HR for fresh guidance and then come back to fully explain that to the commission once we have a better handle on that from the auditors. The other recommendation I'd make is as we looked at Septage, we've also included that spreadsheet the last number of years in the budget conversations to get a better understanding of how much revenue is coming in from Septage, where we've been historically, and we've started to try to add some expenses to it. But as noted on that spreadsheet, those expenses, some of those would be incurred even without any Septage.
Right.
But it's not necessarily a straight percentage of if Septage is 30% of the flow, then 30% of that relates back to Septage. I was talking with Steve and Brad a bit more detail last week about how those numbers need to be looked at a little bit more closely. Steve and Brad now are looking at those numbers right now to try to get us a better estimation of that. So even though it's worked for the past couple of years, I think more scrutiny is worthwhile to see, can we get a better idea of what goes into that. Also, not included in there is other things like staff time or wear and tear on machines. So hopefully we can get a better idea of exactly what Septage costs us per 1,000 gallons, and then look at the volume of that and come back with a better explanation and a better guidance for the board as we look at the budget. So that would be my recommendation for this evening, is that we kind of look at those sheets another day. I think tonight we could still look at the budget and go through, because we have started to look at what we think for increased costs of chemicals and other costs that are coming our way. So we can at least start with a preliminary walkthrough of that. Of course, we'll have a couple more times to review this before we have to make it final in the annual meeting.
So did you want to go ahead and do a preliminary walkthrough now?
If you guys would like to, there's also a question if you want to get first.
Go ahead, Kara.
I'm going to strongly recommend that, because you need to have a better understanding of what you've got going on financially as well as operationally, that you table your budget discussion until because you have a whole list of, I'm going to call it the grocery list of the items that you're currently trying to repair or maintain in your plant right now. And I don't think you have financial numbers associated 100% with all of those items, which impacts your FY23 budget, your actuals of FY23. And you really should be looking at a 24 budget after you've at least looked at your third quarter financials for your water and sewer. So since the March 31st just ended, you don't have third quarter financials to really understand where you are in your actual to budget for 23 to know how much unassigned you're going to have at the end of the year, if any. So I really think you've got too many other pieces that are questionable, such as your unassigned funds from previous years, your reserves, you already know what's in it, but this liquid asset spreadsheet that is not complete yet, or potentially has issues that you're looking at to resolve. I really don't think it's a good thing for you to look at a 24 budget, even a cursory look, until you understand some of these other pieces that are not at a level for you to review yet. So I think you guys talk a lot about spending a lot of time in your meetings and they run late and you've got a lot of information going on. I think you need to have all the accurate information to start with. And if you don't have all the numbers for 23 for the first 3 quarters, then you're just going to continue to have the habit of just pushing something forward because we got to do this, rather than making sure, because I thought that liquid asset spreadsheet was going to be updated from the last meeting, and now it's 2 weeks later and it's not updated, or we don't have the comments, and now we're going to get advice from somewhere else. So thank you.
Thank you, Kara. Jay?
Just real quick, we're not trying to finalize the budget tonight. We're reviewing it, and some of what we're going to be looking at is stuff that doesn't necessarily have to do with what you just listed. I do think we should wait to review the topics you just listed, but I think we can still look at the remaining part of the budget that doesn't.
Yeah, we do have some pretty accurate costs in front of us tonight to discuss.
You know, like the biosolids, that's going to go up. It's just we can't help that.
Yeah. You want to start talking about some of the things we know?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's share this and see if it's. All right, so we'll start on the water side. In revenue, net interest on the checking account, we've increased due to more recently having a higher interest rate, so we're earning more money back on the money that we have in the bank. For right now, we've level funded fund balance usage, which is essentially unassigned funds, just to have a number in there. Of course, there'll be more information and discussion about that number as we get deeper into the process. Sorry, lost my spot for a minute.
Can you repeat, Josh, can you repeat what you just said? You kind of broke up. So that 27,339 is just a plug number that you're using from funds, unassigned funds?
It's the same number we used last year. So
okay.
To put something in as a placeholder for now, knowing that it needs more conversation, I put that in there right now just as a placeholder, knowing that we'll talk about it more as.
Thank you. Thank you.
So then let's see here. Then down into payroll, what we looked at here was this includes the movement on the grid for Steve. It also includes filling the vacancy and then everybody going up one spot on the pay grid, and included about a 5% increase on the grid itself, which is what we went with as an assumption for the select board. So if we can kind of try to keep it fairly consistent here. Looking at the auditing numbers, so let's see, there's some smaller changes. So the audit number was updated based on the actual contract and the actual cost of the audit. We increased staff training due to the increase in the price of the apprenticeship program. We added a budget of $500 for legal to try to match a little bit better of what we've been using in the past. Insurance is increased to reflect the current year pricing of 2023 from VLCT and passive. Electricity is increased to better reflect the actual expenses. Trash removal is increased to better reflect the actual expenses. Water contracted is increased to reflect the actual. This is primarily for water testings, so making sure that we're staying current on the price of testing of the water samples. The Waterline item here is for maintenance. Sorry, I kind of skipped ahead a little bit. Waterline item here is for maintenance and repairs, such as water leaks. This has been reduced to better reflect the actuals of the last couple of years, but still kept it relatively in a good area to try to account for unexpected repairs as they come up. And then on the revenue side, we currently just, again, level funded the reserves. I think, as we talked about, we need a little bit more dive into that, but as a starting point, starting to level fund those on the water side. On the wastewater side, again, the net interest on checking has been increased due to what we expect with the increased interest rate. Again, level funded fund balance usage with the same caveat that we need to look into that a bit more. And with level funded septage receipts, again, I think we need to look into that a bit more. But as far as starting point for the budget to get us starting somewhere, that's what we did to start those off. Payroll is the same as water, where we looked at what we anticipate staffing levels to be in FY24, as well as increase the grid and increase along the grid for current staff. Administrative expenses have increased due to increased compensation for staff. Audit numbers, same as the water side, we increased that based on the actual contract with the auditors. Staff training, same as the water side, to account for the apprenticeship program. Insurance, again, same as the water side, to account for current year pricing. Plant electricity based on current usage and rates has gone up. Rubbish removal also gone up a bit based on current rates. Some of the ones that are bigger as we look into biosolid disposal, which is
down to.
Yep, biosolids. So this is likely to go up based on the contract with CSWD. I took a look at the average annual tonnage and assumed the price increase in February 24 to come up with that estimated cost for the year. That's what we're hearing from CSWD and Casella. So fortunately, that won't really kick in until the second half of FY24, but it's still going to be an increased cost for us. To try to estimate that best as we could. Wastewater chemicals, they're at almost $10,000 year to date. The current price of sodium aluminum is forecast to increase. So we adjusted that as well to look at the increase in wastewater chemicals. And then biosolid chemicals is for the purchase of polymer. That price has been going up. There was a 9% price increase from 22 to 23. And we would anticipate there's probably going to be some more price hikes to come. So we've increased that by about 9% over the current $90,000 budget, expecting that we might get some more increases there.
So this does not include anything about the Waterline inventory or the Waterline replacement. No funds coming in, no funds going out. That's just
at this point, no.
Okay.
Did we want to talk about water meters now?
Oh, right. Well, we have the bid opening for water meters tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
So we'll have a better sense of that. So I think that's another one that we'll need to come back with and then figure out, do we want to use a reserve fund to pay for that, or do we want to put parts into the budget? And we'll have a better sense of that after tomorrow.
Go ahead.
I have two questions when it's appropriate to ask them about things I just don't understand because I'm new.
Go ahead.
So my first question is, how does the water and sewer receipts go up if we haven't changed the cost yet?
So that, so what we did for this pass of the budget is to make everything equal at the bottom. So we kind of back into that number by looking at our total wastewater expenses, which is here 967, 874. Then we look at hook on fees, where we think we're going to do with interest on checking, fund balance usage, and septage receipts. And essentially we have $444,000 that we need to raise from users after we look at those numbers. And then that would then really drive where the rates go, because once we determine how much we need to raise from users in water and wastewater, I then take that number and put that into the rate sheet, and then build that rate sheet out, again, accounting for revenue from other sources. And then we go through that process to figure out what the rates are going to be.
Okay. And then my other question is, so how does it work that we have employees that work on both sides of the plant and they're listed into on both sides? Do they share 1.5 employees each or something? So
good question. And the way that we have it is it's really sort of separated into two separate businesses, if you will. There's the water side and the wastewater side. Our employees got to do work on both sides. So I don't know exactly where we got this number, but for a number of years, at some point, they were going to look at, well, how much should we allocate to each side for shared expenses like payroll, or there's other things that kind of cross over both that isn't clearly water or clearly wastewater. So like, for instance, insurance, things like that. So we do a 70-30 split where we'll take 70% of the expenses and put it towards wastewater and 30% goes towards water. So that's how we've currently been calculating how to split payroll and benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Jay?
How many bids have we gotten for the meters?
So far, we have 2 bids in the office today. Not due until I think 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So there's potentially a couple more, but I'm encouraged we've got 2 so far.
Any other questions, comments?
I think Kara has one on the.
Oh, go ahead, Kara.
Is the actual FY22 exactly that? Is that your actual numbers from FY22?
Numbers, yeah. Connie, I believe you pulled those out of the audited numbers for FY22, right? Yes, those are the actual from the close of FY22.
Okay.
Anything else? Are we ready to move on?
Is there any reason? Can I ask another question?
Go ahead.
Is there any reason why you don't keep your sewer user receipts level for right now, considering you're sitting on a lot of, you were at 35% of unassigned funds when you only had to be at 15? Is there any reason why you don't keep that level funded there and use your fund balance usage as your plug number instead, so that when users and everybody's looking at this, They're not seeing that you're proposing potentially increases.
I think that is a great question, and it speaks to the next part of this process, that once we have a better understanding of where we're at with fund balance usage and septage receipts, then we can adjust those numbers to be higher or lower, and then that will also affect sewer user receipts. If the commission would like to see a draft where we increase those at a time, we could certainly do that. This just sort of seemed to be not knowing where we wanted to be with fund balance receipts. I kind of wanted to start here and see where we go based on feedback from the commission and the public.
Another comment is, I think it would be good if you kept a comment column going so that you knew that you've forced that number based on your expenses, and that's where you're forcing the increase rather than the analysis of where the increase will actually fall, so that, you know, somebody else looking at this down the road realizes that.
Okay.
Morgan?
Yeah, I mean, some of these, I'm going to call them capital accounts, reserves, will be affected from the list that Steve and Alan have made up. I mean, we've got pretty expensive list of things that we need to get caught up on. So that's going to probably have a fairly significant effect on what we have in funds.
Yeah, and what I think that is the as part of the budget, scroll down to the bottom. So we did add a comment here about what our projection is at the end of the fiscal year for the different capital funds. That right now is really based on current things that have already been spent out of them, as well as current allocations going into each of those funds. But it's a good point that we need to maybe put some numbers to what we're looking at going forward to the list we've been growing, and say, well, we're going to spend maybe another $100,000 or whatever out of this fund to accomplish this project. So we should have that in.
Right. And it just, I mean, that's a long list. We could be all into fiscal year 2024 before we're halfway through that list of items. Right?
Yeah. Some of that list is going to be addressed by the 20-year upgrade, and we're trying not to spend money on things that we can wait for the 20-year upgrade. At least that's my understanding. But there are some things we need to address now. So we are trying to wait for the bigger picture, but there were things that we desperately needed to address now.
Right. Keep the hamsters moving.
They're moving.
Any other questions or comments on the budget walkthrough?
And we are researching to try to cut chemical costs, especially with the polymer. We're doing a little bit of research about, currently we buy it in 55-gallon drums. And it's the most expensive thing that we buy down there. But 270-gallon totes are cheaper, and there's less waste. We waste maybe 1.5 gallons of polymer on every 55-gallon barrel because it just doesn't come out. And with a tote, you can basically, they have a plastic liner that you can pull up and drain the whole thing right out. That's what I've been told.
And then it's just cheaper. You get a volume discount.
You get a cheaper
unit price.
Yeah.
Are they like the totes that we use for seed at the farm?
Yeah, basically the same type.
Like the green bag thing.
Well, you've seen them. They come with a cage and they have a white.
Oh yeah, like a sap tank thing.
Yeah, people use them for sap, but so there's some price break that a lot of people are telling us that buying it in the bulk is the way to go. So we're doing a little bit of research with that to try to save some money on that.
Thank you.
Kara, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a question on I know you're going to you're working on that whole, we'll call it your to-do list. On your to-do list at one point was a meter to measure, and I know you can talk about it for the 20-year plan, but the meter to measure the septage as it came in, because if you're not accurately recording your septage, then you're not going to have true numbers of what you're processing and charging. Is that something on the list of, do we have the idea, and maybe I missed it in a previous meeting, how much that meter cost or that measuring technique costs?
Well, from our end, we haven't, that's a low priority for us right now. That's something that we felt could wait for the 20-year upgrade. And we haven't done any research. We can certainly investigate in and see what prices are out there.
I understand the desire to wait for the 20-year situation, but we've been waiting for the 20-year situation for 20 years. So that being said, hold on, Steve, that being said, my point is, if you do not measure, you are measuring what you're charging your customers. You are not measuring what you are charging non-customers. So that's not a fair and equitable thing to be doing. And so I would really want to know what the charge is, because even if you increase your septage, can you go to septage revenue just for 1 second on this, on your sheet, Josh? Because if you're looking at $460,000 and you're off by 10%, that's $46,000. So you could very easily pay for that measuring system by having accurate measurements. Because I'm going to tell you, I would bet money on the table that we are not overcharging haulers when they're allowed to say how much they have.
I agree. Most places that have put in a flow meter to measure their septage receipts, they have increased their septage revenue without doing anything.
But it's no longer an
Huh?
It's no longer an estimate. It's accurate.
Right.
Right.
It's accurate measurement, and so I agree. It more than likely is would pay for itself. And I mean, we can put that to the forefront and get some information and see where we can go with that.
I mean, it's a commissioner decision, but it goes to equitability, and your users are paying potentially more than what their fair share is.
I think getting some prices on that to see how much, if it's $1,000, it's easy. If $100,000, it's a harder question.
Yeah, no,
somewhere in the middle. Let's figure out what the estimates are and bring it back.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the initial walkthrough on the budget?
I'm good at this time.
And it's my understanding we're going to table the discussion on septage rates to the next meeting.
I don't know if we officially decided that, but if you guys would like to, until we get some more information potentially on septage rates.
About the actual rates.
Yeah.
What other information are we waiting?
So let's just talk about it, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because we did cover it briefly, but not really in depth at the beginning here. So with septage rates, so a couple things. Staff reached out last fall when we looked at the rates. I think it was in November, to get competitive septage rates from other facilities. Didn't have a chance to complete that before this meeting. I think we could probably get that done this week for next meeting. But also in talking with Steve and Brad last week in the town a bit as well, I think we might be able to get a little bit closer on what did it actually cost us. And if we can have some better estimates by next meeting, that might help inform the number that we want to go to. And we can at least have some better competitive rates. And I'll let Steve.
Well, one thing that when we were reaching out and trying to find rates and stuff, we talked with the guy down in Middlebury who was great, and he emailed us a spreadsheet that they had done last year. But in that spreadsheet, they list not only their septage rates, but the quantity that they take for each facility. And what stood out on that thing to me and to Brad as big red flag was they had just about everybody that takes septage in the state listed. Richmond was in volume of taking in septage, 80,000 gallons a day was what they were told Richmond could take in. That's double Montpelier, Burlington, they were in the 40,000 gallons of septage a day. And most plants will only take what they need to process their biosolids properly. I mean, some plants take like 6,000 to 10,000 gallons. That's it.
Do you have a number of what we need to take to
We
do
can
ours,
use
I
like,
believe?
it's between 15 and 20 to make the plant run efficiently and make the solids really dry. Which
Actually,
is,
it's 25.
okay.
Actually. It's like
You know.
25 to 30, it runs better than it does 20.
Well, we took 33 in today. Is wet. And you guys are paying for tonnage to get rid of water.
That's a lot of waste sludge today. That's all that waste sludge from the weekend, Steve. That messed that up.
So I think
That's
that
what messed it up there.
Yeah,
we don't know
I'm
the
not-
exact number,
We
but it's closer to 20 or 30 than it
Yeah.
is to 80.
Yeah.
That number, I think, was based on probably call arounds that Middlebury did maybe over a year ago or so.
Yeah.
And they're trying to figure out estimates from each plant. So
It-
I think it
It was just a number that really stuck out to us that, you know, we're double all the bigger plants. Montpelier's plant is humongous compared to ours. And
Mark?
Well, first, I apologize for arriving late and then talking, but in terms of septage rate, I know we were looking at the septage rate table. We used to be at the bottom, we are close to the bottom. And I just posed the question, is it reasonable to make an interim step, regardless of cost, when you think about the market? We know what the market factors are, or market rates. And I don't know if it makes sense to contemplate an increase sooner rather than later. It's based on the market, even absent a much more detailed cost analysis.
Morgan?
Yes. I mean, I'm concur with that. And I would assume that regardless, we have to make money on this, but we're still competing with the local facilities. And so I see 70 cents, but I see a lot of 75 or 0.7,
yeah,
0.75s. So can we get to 0.75? Do I have a 0.75?
Going once, going
But yeah, we're
twice.
going, right. I agree, we should raise it. That's a good step to go at least to 75.
I think
most of the places that you have some of the numbers that we gave you.
you told me you had some Friday. I don't think I got a report for you because you were going to finish it.
Okay.
So these are the numbers that we had.
Well, that spreadsheet that we gave you from Middlebury had numbers different than this. So it must have been.
But I didn't have a chance to update this with what you had from Middlebury. And you were going to call to confirm some of them because it was weird that some of them were a little different.
So I guess the question before us tonight is, do we take a guess and change it tonight, or do we wait 2 weeks and make a decision with more sound numbers?
And
You could match Montpelier if you wanted. We know Montpelier's.
Typically what the
think
commission
we
would do
are-
is make it effective the next month billing cycle. So assuming we would, so basically we would say, okay, we'll run April out with 0.07. And then we'll say effective May 1st, kind of get notice out to haulers. So we could do that this meeting or April 17th. There would still be time to affect the May rate.
So then it might.
I mean, it's a commission's call. You could take action tonight, or we could fill in this line to kind of get more current numbers. And then maybe we have a little bit more into treatment. Maybe we don't, but at least we have more current numbers.
I mean, we've called out, we put out, and we're just waiting for calls back or time enough to call them again.
Since we wouldn't be affecting, since it wouldn't be till May, it would kick in anyway. I think we could wait till next meeting when we might have some more data, but I do agree it should go up.
Kara?
I'd like to see us not stay at the low point, and I think even going 0.075 keeps us at the low point. I think we need to get up there at the mid area, and I agree. If you're going to wait, I mean, if you're not going to put the prices out until May anyhow, then waiting to have the more factual information in case these are older rates and their rates have even increased from this December 2nd information. So I'd like to see us not be at the bottom of the list. Put us in the middle point. I mean, like up near Essex, like get up there. Why? If we're taking excess amount right now and we're on this list for 80,000, we need to put ourselves back where we should be.
Morgan?
Yeah, I just, Kara, just 0.075 was just an interim step. That's all it was, why that number was put out there, wasn't it final?
Oh, no, I appreciate that. I 100%. Hey, I think you should raise it today. I have no problem with that. But if you're going to raise it today and it doesn't go into effect until May, why does it not go into effect? Because you have to wait till next month for it to go into effect. So are we going to wait 2 weeks from now and say, oh, we can't make it go into effect in May. We have to wait for it to go into effect in June.
No, it sounds like if we raise it in 2 weeks, we can still do that effective for May.
Okay. As long as that's the case, yeah.
Connie?
I mean, there's different things to look at. What is our objective? How much do we want to bring in? Are we looking at making good revenue on it? Then if we become competitive, where are we on the route for these haulers that at what point will it not be convenient for them to come to Richmond? But also, we do have to give adequate notice to the haulers. And I don't consider 2 weeks adequate notice. But so I think we should get better numbers to start with to see where our expenses are at and then make that decision. And because we bill the haulers by the month and we bill on the 10th of the month. So I feel like we should be giving them notice of at least a month.
Dan, did you have your hand up? Go ahead. If you're on a PC, you can just hold the space bar down. There you go.
Can you hear me?
You can.
What would be wrong with getting the average and hit right in the average on that? And what would be wrong with knowing how many people around you can accept any more sewage? It seems like we're taking more sewage only because our price is cheap or because they can't take it to Montpelier or they can't take it to Burlington or why wouldn't we be dead center? I mean, I don't know. Are they going to from Essex or Jericho take it to Brattleboro or Milton or Bennington or someplace because they're a little bit cheaper? Or my question is, I guess, if you know how many gallons the other people can take and they're at their capacity. I mean, I'm not saying take advantage of anybody, but be at the cost average.
Yeah, good point. Bard, then Jay.
So I'm inclined to do something like that for the middle, just in terms of market, because we do want to give advance notice. In terms of cost, though, do we know what does a septage hauler charge to pump out your tank? $500, $600?
When we got ours done this fall, it was 300.
Yeah. For how many gallons?
I could check.
1,000. That's about
probably 1,000.
1,000 gallon tank.
It's just like a tank.
That much.
So $300, and then if they drop off that 1,000 gallons,
$30. No, less than that.
Right. My real point where I'm going is this is a marginal cost of that business activity. If it goes from 70 to 75 or 75 to 85, when I think about what's happened with gas, the equipment they use, the wages they're using, I would guess that they're making decisions not based on just the cost when they drop it off, but how many minutes does it take to get there? Because if every minute costs them like $2, then that's probably not outlandish.
Yeah.
They'd rather avoid another half-hour rent.
Right.
Absolutely. And that was going to be my point. One of the reasons I think, speaking as a relatively new member of the Water and Sewer Commission, that we haven't raised it higher is because we know that Darren Pratt and PNP Septic could go to drop off closer to their offices. I mean, they're making their routes come past us, and I think we've been worried that if we raise it too much, we are doing the whole killing the goose that laid the golden egg. We don't want to price it so high that he says, then why am I coming here?
Yeah.
But because they are our biggest
I believe so.
Yeah. But that's not to say I don't think we should raise it. I do think we should raise it.
And some of it is convenience for them.
Can I talk?
Yes.
For a while, I'm sure a lot of people don't know, PNP was looking at their own dewatering facility. So they wouldn't have to bring it to anyone else. If you go high enough, they might go spend whatever $1 million for that.
Yeah.
And that's your biggest biller out of the whole bunch of everyone.
Aaron?
So if we, Connie, you said you build them on the 10th, right, of the month? So we could potentially at least send the haulers something that says we're revising our rates. Please expect a slight price increase as of May 1st to give them a heads up, even if we don't have a specific number yet. And then at least they would know and they would have a month's notice. I don't know.
Plus they're headed into their busiest time of the year.
Yeah.
Kara?
The fact that they're headed into their busiest time of year and Connie is saying we need to give them, it's good to give them advance notice. I think you should go with Dan's average approach right now, because you have no idea what it really costs you to process this, and you are not even measuring it coming in. So we are the best deal if they're saving 10% because they're bringing more than what they're having to be metered for. We're still going to be the best deal if we're not metering. So I strongly recommend you move forward with Dan's approach and do an average, increase the rate now, and you're giving them plenty of advance notice based on when Connie does the billing. And we don't even know if this is a golden egg because you don't have true expenses related to your septage yet.
Thank you, Kara.
I have been running some numbers actually on some of this stuff. From what I've seen so far, you actually are making money off it currently.
Well, I hope you are.
Actually, it's a decent enough margin with room to spare with what you're currently doing from what I see. And you have been over the last 3 years to 2020.
Yeah. Alan, I think we should take a time to look at those numbers in more detail and come back with a more formal recommendation to the commission on that, though, because I appreciate what you and Brad and Steve have been doing. But I don't want to necessarily speak to those numbers until we've had a chance to go through them.
But we will make a decision in the next meeting.
Yes.
Or right now.
And we can predict it's going up.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's there to wait for?
Stand up.
Go ahead, Dan.
Am I subsidizing the haulers?
No. But we don't know by how much you're not.
You don't know that.
We can't answer the question with veracity.
You don't have all your overhead.
I'm not trying to be a wise guy. I'm asking.
Oh, it's a fair question.
A fair question, because I think the ratepayers paid for all.
We just don't know what they are.
Yeah. I mean, theoretically, the town owns the sewer plant. The ratepayers should own the sewer plant, right?
Yes.
So they shouldn't have that much better deal than I get, right?
That's a fair point.
They are getting a better deal because you're getting measured and they're not.
I understand.
Okay.
Thoughts?
So the question is, I guess, do we want to go ahead and raise it from today and not wait?
So our next meeting will have more accurate numbers on what it costs to process, what area processors charge. So that would be 2 weeks out. And, if the risk is if we make the change tonight, in 2 weeks, we might have to adjust it. So the choices are, do we make an adjustment tonight or do we come back in 2 weeks with a more sound decision? Bard?
And I'd like to put a caveat that doesn't mean a delay in the decision doesn't mean a delay in the effective date.
Right. It would still be May 1st.
We're going to give people less notice. It'll be like, instead of 6 weeks or 10 weeks, it'll be less than 2 weeks.
Well, if you raise it tonight and then you decide to raise it again in 2 weeks, you can give them notice immediately tomorrow that you've raised the rates at least today so that they're on notice.
They should probably have a month, Kara.
That's what I'm saying is, so raise the rates today to give them a month's notice.
Go halfway today and then get the other half of it down the road just a little bit.
Right, but we keep kicking this can of raising the rates.
Either approach. I could move it to 0.08 today, and if we need to go further, we can. I would like to give them a little more notice.
So, David, if I could, just to expedite a fork in the road, then we're going to have to take a fork. I'd like to move that we increase the septage rate effective May 1st to 80 cents.
0.8. That's a big increase.
80 would be pretty good per gallon or 100 gallons, because I've seen this done different ways. Gallon, 100 gallons, 1,000 gallons, because you get into these rankings.
Yeah.
So
second
0.08, subject to revision at a future date.
Second.
Thank you, Bard. Thank you, Jay. So the motion is to increase the septage rate from 0.07 per gallon to 0.08 or 8 cents a gallon effective May 1st, 2023. And that might be adjusted again in 2 weeks. Any further discussion?
Okay.
Okay, hearing none, calling the motion to a vote. So this is a motion to increase our septage rate to 8 cents a gallon, effective May 1st, 2023. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
This is Jay. Aye.
Morgan, I.
Aaron, I.
Bard, aye.
And David, aye. The motion has passed unanimously. Thank you. Are we ready to move on? Okay. Next is consideration of setting a date and a location for the annual meeting. So we traditionally do this the third Monday in May. That would fall on Tuesday, May 16th of this year. Any objections to that date?
No.
So the meeting
Monday.
Tuesday. Why is it Tuesday?
Because we always have a meeting on
On the
Monday.
Tuesday. That's right.
So we have a water sewer meeting on the third Monday,
That's right.
and then we usually do the annual meeting the next day. Is how
Okay.
we've been doing it in the past.
So this meeting can be held as a hybrid meeting with attendance both in person and online. The meetings prior to COVID were held at the library next door to ensure that there was enough room for extra attendees, except for the years when we expected a huge crowd. So we'd go up to the middle school for all 3 attendees. We only had 10 people show up in person with the trend toward meetings virtually. Last year's meeting was held in the hybrid meeting room at the town center, and there was enough space for everyone to attend. I think we'll have enough space to attend in person in the town center meeting room, this room, to accommodate anyone who would like to attend. This would also negate the need to set up and tear down the meeting at the library, which can take several hours between the technical equipment and the tables and chairs. However, should the commission wish to use the library, we do have the room reserved from 6 to 8 on Tuesday, May 16th. Jay.
I move to hold the Water and Sewer annual meeting on Tuesday, May 16th, 2023 at 6 p.m. at the town center.
I second.
Motion made by Jay, seconded by Aaron. Any further discussion? Morgan, it really sounds like you want to say something.
No, I said no, no.
Okay. Hearing no further discussion, calling the motion to a vote. This is a motion to hold the annual Water and Sewer Commission annual meeting here in this room on Tuesday, May 16th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Jay, aye.
Morgan, I.
Aaron, I.
Bard, aye.
And David, aye. Okay, consideration of setting a date and a look. Oh, we did that. Okay, I don't have my glasses tonight, and somebody reduced the font of the agenda, so it's really hard to read.
Dan's allocation next.
Okay, discussion of transferring water and wastewater allocation. Josh, did you want to lead this up, or should we just turn it over to Dan?
Oh, I can tee it up.
Okay.
So we've been talking with he's got the market in its current location. He's working on moving that to Whistle Stop Lane, which will be at the opposite end of Railroad Street, sort of across the street from the current hardware store. Dan's request is to transfer his allocation that he currently has for the market to the new location of the market, and then buy up additional allocation for that market. for what it would need. And then as he looks at what his new business is going to be and the current market location, purchase allocation for that, what he wants to avoid doing is having a lower using business in the current market location and basically have too much allocation on the book. So
yeah,
we looked into the ordinances. There's guidance in the sewer ordinance that the commission has the power to transfer allocation between two properties owned by the same person. There is not guidance in the water ordinance of any sort about transferring allocation. So we've got sort of 50% guidance. And then should the commission wish, should the commission wish to do that, I would also want to make sure that we figured out how to deal with there inevitably would be some overlap where you would have the market operating and the new market hooked up, but not quite that operating where he'd be setting up. So we'd have to figure out, how do we address however many months overlap that would be on the allocation. And one consideration is we can also talk to our attorneys for some guidance to see how would they suggest approaching the transfer and the authority to do that transfer, and if they have any guidance on how to financially potentially account for the transition early time.
Art?
So it's good to know the ordinance because that's the first place to stop. Do we have any relevant authority? And half a loaf is better than no loaf, right? A question about, it seems to me for this kind of thing in other venues, there is a transfer date when one ends and the other starts, so it moves. So I think the simultaneous, if there's simultaneous usage at both sites, if there's actual water and sewer turned on at both sites, that presents a potential problem because you have at least one of them would appear not to have an allocation, or you have two properties working off the same allocation intended for one property, right? Right. Which is probably why we would consult our attorney.
Aaron?
By the time we got to the point where there would be two
buildings,
two businesses running off one allocation, would Dan, what's going to go into the existing building?
I don't know. I don't know, but I could tell you that we could start with something and I could buy that allocation. I'm hoping that I can move my hardware store over there, but one never knows. I mean, somebody came along and offered me good money for it, I would stay right where I'm at and rent it to them. I'm not going to tell you anything different. That's the truth. And but it seemed to me that I'm trying to get the things so that these people can afford the square footage price for the market. And it appears as though it's just a way for me to save a few bucks for them. They're already paying pretty darn good water and sewer bill every quarter. And we just move it. They're going to have a deli and 2 bathrooms just like they've got now. So it seemed logical to move it down there and then buy some sort of an allocation for that building. And if it needs to change, we could do that. I mean, and I could do that ahead of time to buy some sort of an allocation for that building based on maybe my hardware store. I don't know if that makes any sense, but
it does.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Bart David. That seems, what Dan just said seems to address the question of simultaneous use of a single allocation. So that's the wrinkle that I can think of as if we get rid of that one and we have the authority to do it, I think we should give it at least the yellow light and pursue what that would look like.
Yeah.
So I'm clearly missing something. How did that address the overlap? At some point, there's going to be the market running while the new market's hooked up and getting ready.
He's got to reallocate. Dan's got to buy an allocation. If at the date that it moves to the new site, he's got to buy some allocation for the current site.
So he would just have a lower allocation, presumably for those.
Right, there wouldn't actually be any simultaneity on the same allocation.
As one ramps down, the other one ramps up.
So higher use for a few days. Okay, I see. That
You
makes
take
sense.
sort of the date and say, when do you need it? And if there's overlap, then that's what we're trying to avoid is 2 sites using the same allocation, which that's
So the remaining question is just the legality of the water.
How do we do it?
Yeah.
And that seems like something we have to talk to the attorney about.
Yeah, I can follow up and come back.
But otherwise, I have no.
It conceivably could be that I need to buy it ahead of time for the existing building. So that there isn't an overlap. I mean, so I'm not asking you to do it all in one day. I buy it ahead of time, and so you know that's what it's going to be. And when they're ready to turn it on, because they may need to turn it on 6 weeks ahead of when they open. I don't, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for that clarity.
Anything else?
Nope.
Well, thanks for coming, Dan.
Thank you for listening.
Okay. Okay, next, consideration of approval of an agreement with MSK Engineers to conduct the water service line inventory. Do you want to lead this up, Josh?
Sure. We do have Patrick Smart here from MSK, so he can probably be able to answer any technical questions better than I can. But to give an overview, this is something that's coming down from the state as mandated for water systems to do an inventory of all their service lines. Essentially, they're looking to check for any lead service lines. We have talked about how to potentially accomplish this with in-house staff, but knowing that we're short-staffed, it could be a potentially large project. MSK is a company that has conducted a few of these line inventories and is continuing to conduct them throughout the state. They have a proposal that they can conduct the inventory for, I think it's
$43,300.
$43,300, which would fit nicely into the amount of funding that's available and 100% forgiveness from DWSRF for this inventory. So this would be a great way to accomplish the inventory, no additional cost to the department, and some staff time for sure, but not as much as if the staff had to conduct the full inventory. Perhaps I'll turn it over to Patrick if there's anything pertinent that I left out of that summary.
I think you covered it extremely well, Josh.
Thank you, Patrick, with some help from yourself.
All right.
David, my only question is about procurement and bidding, and sort of we should at least talk momentarily.
Thank you for that. So we did actually go out for a request for qualifications for engineers a couple of years ago. So we have a list of engineers that we're basically able to go to based on their qualification. MSK was part of that procurement policy, so they are on our list of qualified engineers, which makes it handy so that we can select them without having to do further procurement of engineering services.
So I'd add, I think that's an important point because that is not a common approach to our other kind of procurement. This is a specific sort of pathway, which was intended to be nimble in today.
Right. So it's just a list of procure or engineers, and you just have to decide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then you can, based on their qualifications, you can enter into a negotiation with them on the list if they're qualified for that project that you have. And we've written that into our purchasing policy as well. A lot of times they look for like engineering and architectural services.
Right. And the funds we get are forgiven anyway.
Correct. That comes through DWSRF. So we would pay first and there'd be reimbursement like when we do a waterline project, only except at 50%, it's at 100%.
Right. Okay.
So this inventory would not go just to our curb stop, but would go into the customer's building?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Patrick. I think you can explain the technical aspects way better than I can.
I just don't want to speak out of turn, but thanks, Josh. Yes, you're right. The service line inventory requirement is coming from new federal regulations that have come down to the state, and they require the entire length of the service line, the materials to be inventoried from the corporation stop on the main up to the building entrance.
Okay. So once inside the building past the meter, we're not looking at building lines, just
correct
service. Okay.
Yeah, the building entrance has been defined in practice for the purposes of inventories as going up to the meter or up to the main shutoff valve for a building, and the piping on the other side is considered an internal plumbing code issue, not a public drinking water regulation issue.
Now, this question is kind of out in the weeds, but are we just looking at the material of the service line, or are they also looking at like lead solder joints and stuff?
So they are just concerned with the service line material. We've done a bunch of work on inventory projects, and also we've been working with Bennington on a lead service line replacement project. As part of that project, we've done a bunch of water quality sampling, and the sampling techniques that we're using down there are able to tell the difference between They know we can notice when there's lead soldered copper joints present in a home, but that's not the intent of the regulations and not what we'd be looking at initially here.
Okay, thank you. Jay?
You're welcome.
I want to ask about the user audit and the stormwater connections aspect of this, which you probably guess I was going to ask about. Would the cost of doing those be in excess of what this motion is currently, the 43,300? This would be, we'd have to approve more for doing those?
Yes, but I'm going to let Patrick respond because I think some of it might be able to be wrapped into this project, but Patrick can.
Yeah, that's a great question. What I talked about with Josh and the way that we'd like to approach this project is developing the service line inventory is a combination of reviewing available records and also going to different connections and looking at the pipe materials at the building entrance. And what we intend to do is when we're going out to buildings to look at those pipe materials, or sometimes residents also are willing to self-perform those observations for the inventory purpose. We have a web-based form that we've created that you can scan with the QR code and that our technicians use. When we're out at the property anyway, we intend to collect the other information to go along with the service connection audit and looking at stormwater to wastewater connections. But I do envision that it's likely that not every property will necessarily be visited for the inventory process. So there may end up being a little bit of a gap in the system between the connections that we visit to complete the inventory, that we have information about number of connections and the total number of connections in town. So there may be a modest amount of additional effort that may be needed at the end to complete the audit or to complete the evaluation of the stormwater connections.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry that I was speaking in generalities. I was trying to be specific. Did I answer the question? Was that helpful? Or
saying that some of this would be done without really a lot of extra effort, you would just be there already. But there would be some that you would have to do a little bit more work on, and there would be an extra cost for that.
Yep.
Aaron?
How do we not go to all of the locations? Because we already know what their lines are made of?
So that's a great question. And the guidance that so the federal government said every utility has to do this work, do it however the state tells you to. And the state of Vermont has published guidance and established requirements for how to perform the inventory. What the state's public drinking water program, where they've set the bar, is you need to review available records. And if for a connection, if you can find a record that is reliable and that you trust, then you can use that record as a basis for categorizing the pipe materials. So for example, if we were to go to the middle school and look and see, oh, there's a wastewater permit on file with a record drawing that's stamped and it's calling out ductile iron going into the building, we wouldn't necessarily have to go out to the school to do an observation. We could say, oh, based on this record. What we've been doing in practice is for communities that we're doing the inventory on, some of them have extensive records, and we'll go through the records and then go out and do observations at a subset of the records just to sample and verify that the information actually is reliable. So that's one way that we could get out of having to visit everywhere. The other thing is there's an effective date of July 1st, 1989. In the state of Vermont, that's when the use of lead service lines were effectively banned, according to the state's program. So any construction after that date is categorically not lead. And just based on the date of construction, we can say, oh, we don't need to look at that service line material. So those are the two situations.
Okay, thank you.
Just for context, what are the allowable materials currently for water service line? When you say what's not okay, what is okay for a water service line material?
Go ahead, Patrick.
Thank you. For new construction, I would say the most common materials, if we're talking about a larger, like a commercial or industrial facility that's using a lot of water, it might be ductile iron. If you're looking at more of a residential, small scale commercial, I would expect the service line is either plastic like HDPE or LDPE, or it would be copper. Those are the universe of materials for new builds. For existing you know, we've seen wooden pipe, galvanized, you name it, it's out there kind of.
Thank you. Any other questions?
My understanding that any galvanized pipes that they cannot officially say hasn't had lead before it in the system is considered a lead pipe. So there are some houses up on Route 2 that I know have galvanized, and so technically if they can't prove there is a lead before it or a lead gooseneck, then they are considered to have had lead on.
Okay.
So David, if I could move to enter an agreement with MSK Engineers to conduct water service line inventory in amount not to exceed $43,300 and to seek 100% funding for the project through the Vermont Drinking Water State Revolving Fund.
Thank you, Bard.
I second that.
Thank you, Morgan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Jay, I.
Morgan, aye.
Aaron, I.
Bard, aye.
And David, aye. Patrick, thank you for coming tonight and for answering our questions.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a nice
Moving
evening.
on. Thanks, you too. Stay dry.
Bye.
It's about to. Discussion of, no,
Consideration of.
yeah. Consideration of recommending that the select board approve the drinking water state revolving fund loan application for construction of a water line replacement project on Tilden Avenue and portions of Bridge Street and Cochran Road. So in prior meetings, we've talked through the need to do this, what's there now and why we need to replace it. This would be the formal recommendation that this commission ask the select board to approve the application.
We need to make a motion.
We do. Aaron?
Oh, you can do it.
No. I don't have it from me, but I make a motion to approve the recommend that the select board approve the DWSRF application for water line replacement at Tilden Avenue and portions of Bridge Street and Cochran Road.
Thank you, Morgan, with help from Jay.
Second.
Thank you, Jay. Sorry, Aaron. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote, please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Jay, aye. Morgan, aye.
Aaron, I.
Bard, aye.
And David, aye. Motion passes unanimously. We will move that up to the select board. Okay, discussion of an automatic extension for biosolids disposal rates with Casella. Okay. Morgan.
Do we have a choice?
No.
No. But we're going to discuss it because it's part of public.
Yeah, I mean, I put it as a discussion. I was hoping it was going to be an action item, but Josh Tyler from CSWD was going to provide us with like an official sort of letter of recommendation, and then also a letter that the board, that the commission can approve to kind of go back to CSWD to officially from the commission say we approve moving forward with Casella. He was trying to get that official letter from all of the participating wastewater facilities, and he didn't have that ready for this meeting yet. So going to basically provide an update that this is basically where we're at. We don't really have a choice based on the research that CSWD has been doing into other options other than Casella. The only other option really out there is Canada, and that could prove to not be a good option if they pass some obligation. Really getting more strict on importation of wastewater with PFAS. So based on all the advice that CSWD has been getting as they reach out to experts in the field, it seems like moving forward with Casella is the right way to go. And we'll probably be back at the next meeting with the official letters from CSWD.
Bard?
So it's just a mid-course like advisory that we're headed in this direction. I'll be back on April 17th.
Yes.
Okay, essentially. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Moving on. It has come to this commission's attention that the wastewater plant might need some work. Review of a list of water and wastewater items to be repaired or replaced, including an update on the Influent pump. So this is one of the two pumps coming into the plant. Steve is anxious to share something with us.
Richmond
Come on.
is now the proud owner of a 1,200 gallon a minute pump,
Nice.
900 pounds, down 3 stories, in place, and operational since last week.
That almost looks like a turbo turbine wheel. You'd see
Pretty
it.
much.
I don't know.
And it's 25 years newer than what we took out.
And in 1 year exactly, it turns into a pumpkin.
Thank you,
yes.
Philip Laramie.
And it's probably had a little bit less service than the one that's replacing.
Yeah.
So this was an off-the-shelf one that was replaced as a planned upgrade, but still had service life left. So Phil Laramie said, hey, Richmond, let's talk.
And as far as I know, he gave us the pump.
It's actually bigger than what we need.
It is twice the size. And it hooked up, he worked with the pump specialist, so the VFD that we had and everything, all hooked up to it. We can never run it. It's a 45 horsepower motor, and the one that replaced was a 25. So we can never run that pump, which would be impossible for us anyway, at full bore. We can only run it at 70%.
Okay.
No, you could.
It's yours now, Morgan.
So there are 2 Influent pumps at the plant, and they're designed to be run alternately. The problem was one of them died, so we lost our redundancy. So if the other one, which was the same age with the same service life, going back to what, 1972,
yes,
had died, the plant would cease to function.
Original equipment.
Yes.
Yeah.
And right now we still functionally just have one going, but we've got another one.
We have the ability to, if one's broken, we can switch, but we're primarily using this pump right now.
Okay.
So we're not sending a strongly worded letter to the Acme Pump Company because their pump lasted only 50 years.
We do have all the parts and pieces. Phil brought them back. So whoever wanted them for an art project, we have them all.
Right.
There you go. But if you look in that, it's just one thing after another. So if you look just to the side of the pump before the red valve, it is supposed to be a check valve. There's supposed to be one in front of each of the pumps. The guts are missing out of them.
So there's no check valve.
So there's no check valve. So in the process, we had to, we've ordered new check valves to replace them. They're $1,500 a piece. They weigh 300 pounds, but.
So the check valve's needed. We've got the sewage coming in. If anything happened, the check valve keeps it from backflowing.
Well, when you shut the pump off, what it allows us to do is be able to operate both pumps without having to go down and manually turn the valves.
Okay.
Because it stops them from flowing against each other.
Which might cause them to prematurely burn.
Right. So we've ordered the new check valves, and that was they can be used in the upgrade. They're going to be brand new, and so we'll put them in and use them now, and they can be just used in the upgrade.
So a valve is a valve is a valve.
Yeah, at least it'll have all its guts.
Now, was that a surprise that the check valves were missing?
Not to some people.
Okay. Hard.
Well, in that line of inquiry, I realize this is water under the bridge, so to speak, but how is it we get to a point that the design installation with check valves ends up with installation without check valves?
The same way you end up with a grinder that's not in place. They were removed. They caused problems in the plant, and they removed them. Is it right? No. But things are, and I really want to say that we are desperately moving forward with everything down at the plant. The stairs are like 85% finished. We're just using those to fill in things.
When they're done, we need to have a ribbon cutting.
Yeah, sure. The pump was the big one. We got that in. And we're progressing on other things. We've rebuilt the pump for the septage. We were able to rebuild that. That's all been done.
How long was that offline?
Huh?
How long was that offline for that repair?
We did it in, it's supposed to take 8 hours. We did it in 6, and we didn't have to shut down for septage because tanks were empty. And we were able to take 30,000 that day and have it back up and running by 2 o'clock.
Okay.
So we didn't shut down for anything. And
That's great.
And that's all. So that's done. The backwash pump for the filters. One of the problems that we occurred when we put in a 1,200 gallon a minute pump was it would blow our plant out if we really had to run it full bore. So one of the things that occurred was that we only have one filter right now. So the focus has been, and Phil, I talked with him this morning, the backwash pump for the second filter, he was supposed to have called me today. It was supposed to be completely rebuilt and we could pick it up tomorrow and have it installed. That would bring our second filter online, give us another little cushion. And then the next big project is draining the fish tank. And I think Josh has put out there's some concern about the fish.
Yes, yeah.
Whether we can put them in the river or not? Or?
Well, yeah, there is that question. Most people we talk to wouldn't advise that, but there is a wildlife biologist or somebody in town that works for them.
I'm not sure if he's a wildlife biologist, but he works for Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah.
So I reached out to him to ask, do you have any suggestions on what we can do?
How many fish are there approximately?
5, 6, 7, somewhere in that.
And if we put them in the river, they wouldn't be able to defend themselves.
Well, would you really want to put one in the river and
Have
then
somebody catch
have
it.
somebody catch it and eat it?
It's funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
Do
But-
they just need a home?
Yes.
Pretty
Could
much.
they go to someone's pond if they weren't
Yes.
going to get fished?
You can feed them dog food. That's what they eat.
They don't. Okay.
They're about 18 inches long.
I saw them.
And the species, remind us again?
They're rainbow trout.
18-inch rainbow.
Yeah.
You know, when I joined the select board, I never knew I'd be dealing with trout.
I did.
No.
But so the next goal is to get the fish tank drained, get the valve fixed in it, clean it out, make sure that the aerators in the bottom of it are good, and bring that back online. And that will give us another cushion to be able to run this pump just a little faster, because we're currently running it at between 75 and 160 gallons a minute. So you can imagine, and if we run it much slower, it'll overheat. So there's a fine line. I mean, it will work for us, but we're trying to make all the cushions that we can so we don't have any problems in the plant. And all those things need to be done once we get the aeration tank back into operation. We can drain the other one and fix the valve in that. So we have things. So we're progressing and we've got a little bit of a plan and we've been talking with Josh, but we're going forward.
If all else fails and the fish need a home, I do have a pond. I know of a pond. So
just, for people who are not trout aficionados, they were introduced to Vermont in something like 1800.
Yeah.
They are native to the West. They were not originally here like brown trout and brook trout. So they are non-native as opposed to invasive, is my understanding. For what that's worth.
I think the only other item to add, you did all the updates, is we also had the pump in the pump station repaired, and that's fully online. Or
yes,
okay.
No, the pump in the pump station is completely, it's back online. We can use both of them. We still have one that we need the check valves in there, and that's going to be a major rehaul. One of the benefits, and I discussed with Phil this morning, was I actually found the blueprints for the pump station when it was built.
Awesome.
in the plant, so he can use those to get some measurements and stuff because it hasn't been retrofitted. So yeah, we're gonna have to do a little bit there, but both pumps in the pump station right now are operable and we can use them. So yes, we are moving forward on all those things.
Great.
Well, even though it's a fairly long list, it's nice to know that there is an actual list of what has to be accomplished here, so you can get your head wrapped around what needs to be done.
yeah, and we're, like I said, we're trying, I mean, just having 2 Influent pumps has made it, I mean,
You can sleep at night.
yeah, really can. And Alan has been monitoring them from home on the SCADA system. And so it's been a way, you know, when we install the check valves, it'll be even better because he could actually switch from one pump to the other without anybody being at the plant. So I think.
Hard.
Well, first, I want to thank you and all the staff for moving this forward, because I really sort of jumped into it and you turn over a rock and you're not quite sure what you're going to find. But my real question is, what else do you need from us? I think there's a consensus that we want to support you to do what needs to be done and address the highest priorities first.
From our, I mean, we're working with Phil trying to get a basis on how to get this plant back into operational and in good operation. And the support you guys have given us with the ability to do some stuff is great. And something that we would like to do, most of the staff would like to do, is we would like to clean out the office. A lot of things. There are a lot of records and stuff there that date I mean, it's like 1972 and nothing's ever been touched.
Are you asking for funds for a dumpster?
No, well, no, we have dumpster and we can do that, but I feel some of the things are not stuff that the staff could make decisions on. They are actual documents from when the plant was designed and stuff that maybe the town would like to hold on to.
Yep.
Or
Historical Society of Nothing.
There you go. But yeah, we would like some guidance when we in that, and that's a rainy day or a hour at the end of the day type filling thing that we're slowly trying to do.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
If I would like to say that make a good digitization project, it's like digitally save them, since they want to eventually have that town center server with all the files. Maybe we digitize that stuff, so we have it.
Yeah,
take it to Staples to do that.
Well, or get a scanner.
I've got a scanner.
Yeah,
I mean, got a scanner.
I mean, some of the stuff is just it's why is this here? But there is a lot of it that we'll open a drawer and it's the plans from 90, the first proposal for a plant down there or whatever. And I mean, I don't want to throw them away because they might hold some value to the town.
Yeah.
So that I guess is where we would be looking for some direction from somebody as far as a town official or something.
Yeah.
And digitizing them, sure. I mean, yeah, you don't lose them that way, but
you can, but yeah.
I appreciate the first step is keep or toss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As I walked through, there was a lot that
should be tossed.
There were a lot of items of various sorts that looked ready to be tossed.
Yeah.
Treadmill.
Yeah.
Why I mean, why things are kept. It's beyond me.
It's just the pack rat urge. The whole thing about keeping parts that are literally broken, but we might be able to fix them one day. That's just classic hoarder behavior.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
I mean, I thank God that Phil kept this pump for us. But like he said, he it was too good to get rid of, but
not worth keeping.
But it worked for us. And Phil did a great job getting it all figured out so that it worked in our system.
So having asked the question, if we need a follow-up, Josh, I think in terms of what records need to be retained, I think you and folks can solve that. But if we need to weigh in in some fashion, or approving dumpster, or who are those guys? Junkyard, us.
We hope.
I mean, we have a dumpster that goes every week that isn't full anyway, usually, that we can add stuff to. but it's making the decision on some of this stuff. I don't feel, I mean, all of the blueprints and drawings and stuff, those are a definite keep.
Yeah.
Don't want to get rid of any of that stuff. But there is a lot of stuff there's file cabinets that literally have town reports from 1972 to the current. And I'm pretty sure that, I mean, I know in Heinsberg, we have those all in the library or somewhere if you want to look at them. Stuff like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know who is the one to bless that, but
I think start going through it, taking a look at what you got, and then we'll have a
And if you
discussion
wind up
about-
making a box of stuff you want to scan, I mean, I can just,
Yeah, I know we've got a scanner in the office too.
Yeah.
that we can use, and like, I think Linda has some resources, so I think we can look at that.
Yeah.
If we need to spend some one-time money to get through this, I think there's receptivity to it.
And I'll be honest, there is a mice problem at
Where there's spills.
sewer plant.
well, stick the hamsters on them.
Well, I mean, it is,
Do you guys have, Ehrlich?
Ehrlich?
Talk to Linda. We have a contract with them to come up here,
okay.
so we can.
I mean, there is numerous traps all over, but
Yeah, if Ehrlich can come through and probably do an assessment for you, so let's get them down there. It may
Okay.
not solve everything, but it's a
Yeah.
step in the right direction.
yeah,
My suggestion is, call the professionals versus get a cat or set up traps. which
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this
Yeah.
is one where, partly for the health of the staff, we should get ahead of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in the lab especially, it's pretty bad.
Paul Ehrlich.
Yeah. Especially if we're already on account or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can
So-
add you on. I know Linda's talking about
Yeah.
our service up here, so it might be a good time to.
Okay.
Come some more.
Cool. And I do appreciate all the support you guys have shown for us. It's made a big difference in the morale down there.
Good.
So,
Good.
We appreciate what you're doing too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
well,
Feel free to
we're
keep reaching
trying.
out. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to stay for the next one too?
What's the next one?
Consumer
Confidence
confidence.
report?
Huh?
Consumer confidence report and asbestos testing.
Sure.
Take it away, Josh.
So included in the packet is the consumer confidence report that we do every year on the water quality. Most of that is filled in by the state with results that we have on file with the state. It gets mailed out to every user and posted publicly so every user has a chance to see what's in their water. The thing this year that we're looking at is we did miss an asbestos test. It's a test that you're supposed to take once every 9 years. And you're supposed to take it at the end or near where an asbestos line has been. So we missed this test at the end of 22. We were alerted to it early 23. I think you guys knew about it anyway. And they wanted us to take a test here in the town center. We told them, well, there's no more asbestos line in front of the town center. We replaced that in 21. So then you took it down on, I think, on Cochran Road, and it's in there. I think it was like March 10th that we took it, sent it in. There was a non-detect for asbestos, so we're fine on the asbestos part of that test. But what I want to do is include some more information in the consumer confidence report, and there's a notice that needs to go out to customers along with that. So I want to be very descriptive in there about the steps that were missed, what happened, and that we are free of asbestos right now, so that everybody doesn't see missed test. Oh my gosh! But no, here's the data behind that. Here's where we're at now, and we're in compliance. I don't know if you have more to add.
I mean, it was a total miss. I mean, there's no excuse, but it happened at the end of 2022 in that last quarter, when we were all.
The transitional quarters.
Yes,
What you're trying to say?
we were all going around and trying to, and it did. Usually our testing facility reminds us that we have something coming due. And for whatever reason, whoever got the memo, that didn't get done. So we did it as soon as we could in February, I think we took one, but it was at the wrong location because there was no longer asbestos pipes where we took it. So we then took one as soon as we knew and did it at Cochran.
Yeah, it's important to mention that the asbestos cement pipes that are in the water system have never had
Friable. Have never been friable
But they've never had a test show
or,
significant asbestos contamination. It's very inert. The problem with the asbestos cement pipes is water can be corrosive and dislodge the fibers, but Richmond's water is not corrosive, so we've never had that problem. Not excusing missing the test, but people think, oh my gosh, asbestos. It sounds scary, but
And with your sewer up or your water line upgrade, most of those pipes are going to be gone.
Yeah.
So,
Well, asbestos doesn't usually rear its head unless it's destructive.
right.
I assume that when we have done all the studying and whatnot for replacing those lines, we have included that probably an asbestos contractor is going to have to take those out. No,
We just leave them buried.
no.
oh, you don't have to touch them.
Well, if you touch them,
Right.
you have to have somebody remove them now.
Right, it's best to just,
They used to just leave them in place. They don't do that anymore.
they don't.
oh,
Because
okay.
when we cut the first one that I dealt with was the storm drain down here for the park, and that one they left in place. But then it was after July, the laws and rules changed. If you do excavate them, you have to remove them.
Really?
And that occurred on Thompson Road,
Okay.
where they had to remove a piece. They physically cut it up, and then the guys with hazmat suits come and bag it all up before it even comes up out of the trench and remove it. And I believe the state requires them to be removed now. If you're excavating them, they have to be removed.
Oh,
If you don't excavate them, they can just.
They can stay there, I believe.
I'll follow up with Tyler, who's our engineer on that.
I'm
project.
sure that should have been in part of the bid. Anywhere that they're gonna cut or.
I'll ask Tyler for the rules, because I'm sure he's up to speed, but that's good to know that they changed as recently in July. So,
Yeah,
okay.
because this one, they left them in place, and that one up there, they had to bag them. I was like, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of strange because if you leave them, they're fine. The problem is, like Aaron said, when you break them up and the fibers.
No,
become
they had to have a special saw to cut them. It could not be a rotary saw. It was a chainsaw type thing. And yeah, the guys with the hazmat suits had to do all that. And then they literally were like 3-foot pieces, and they had double bags them, tape them all. And then they had to, put them in a truck, and it was a hazmat truck and everything.
This is so triggering. 30 years ago, I was present for one of the most idiotic asbestos abatement things ever. I could tell you stories. It's not town business, but oh God. So let's not have another one.
Okay.
But the good thing is the test was negative. It was done as soon as we could get it done.
We're all off a year or two on our physicals, so it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Thanks, Cliff.
Are we ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay, review. No, we did that. Update on the Gateway expansion project.
Oh, that.
Who wants to?
Oh, that.
Who wants to pick the ball here? I can give a summary, but
Thanks,
you
sir.
guys are very well versed in this.
It's the continuing saga.
Do you want me to give my brief update, and then if you or Jay want to jump in, then you can. So Jay Fair, Bart Hill, and I have been exploring some options to move the sewer expansion project forward with the Willis Farm property owners, Joy and Bob Reap. Discussions have centered on the route from the school to the Willis Farm property, and have included discussion on if the town would be willing to take over the school sewer system, so we don't have a public to private, a separately owned private system, or to a public system after that. Discussion of if the town should conduct this as a public project, or if the Reeps should construct this as a private project and then have that turned over to the town after construction in the warranty period. Discussion of the easement that the Reeps have with the Richmond Land Trust, which appears to limit the sewer expansion to serve only the Willis Farm property. And discussion of the NBRC grant of $147,947 which may or may not be applied to a new route. We're still confirming with the NBRC grantors, as the application specified a route along Route 2. And we're also trying to clarify if that money could be applied to a private build that would then later be turned over to the town, or if it has to be a public project from the word go.
You got about 6 items there.
Yeah, there's a few.
Right.
5 minutes.
But now
we could spend 5 hours.
Yeah. Right now, the number one shoe left to drop is the land trust and the easement. We had a meeting with them that I thought went fairly positively. It was myself, Bard, Josh, Gary Bresser, Jeremy Oscoff, and Jim Feinson, and they asked a lot of very good questions about what exactly the plan was, what this would entail. And when I had to sign off a meeting, because I had another meeting, the sense that I got was that they were not hostile to the idea of amending the easement to allow for this, but that they had certain conditions that they might want to apply, such as it could only be used for property on the north side of Route 2 and not on the south. And that they would have to meet with their board to discuss it further. So Bard, you were able to be on the meeting a little longer than I was.
I think that's a good description. And so, I think some of the members of the board may have changed their opinion about development in the Gateway over the last 10 or 15 years, especially driven by the obvious and increasing need for housing. And so you're right that they're really looking at the view shed on the other side of the road as their prime interest. But how that plays out in terms of the easement or a modified easement is another question. And I think there is a narrow read. What does the current easement mean? So if lines went up and down the hill to serve the REIT property, I don't think the easement is explicit about public or private, as if I recall the wording. So then it goes to what was the intent and what's allowed or not allowed. And I think a question of extension past the REITs is their initial position is you can't do that. It's not what it says. But would they be willing to amend it? Is it possible to amend it in the future? And another factor here, if we think about the bullets, is the REIT's desire to move forward with construction sooner rather than later, having reached 8 years now. So then one way to think about this is within the guardrails of the NBRC grant, the guardrails of the easement, and the feasibility of extending all the way to Jericho Road or connecting to the school in a single line that could then be taken over. Those are all the questions.
It's my understanding that you would want to go all the way to the Jericho Road. The school sewer line is a mess. And when you guys upgraded the water line and took over the water line, that was all improved to town standards. But the sewer line, they don't even know where, they know roughly where it is. But we had an issue last summer where Green Mountain Power wanted to put a thing up there, and we don't know where they are because the school owns it, and they can't find their digitized plans. So, and it's had several breaks throughout the years because it is a forced main. So that line that the school uses, if the town were to take it over, would have to be completely upgraded.
That was one of the other forks in the road to say, well, if it's going to be one line all the way down, if then you can't connect to the current line because of its condition, then that's replacing the existing private line to the school, and who pays for that?
Right.
So there are these sort of contingent discussions of that. And the one thing that I think we'd conclude is the current users would not pay to replace the school line. So how that would play out is a question mark.
Morgan,
sort of be
county money, even though it's our money, it would be county money, right?
Unified Union School District money.
So, right, so if you think about, there's the town of Richmond, the water sewer customers and this commission, and then the Chittenden Supervisory Union and those schools. And the schools on site serve residents other than just Richmond residents.
Right.
So those are like another reason why this stuff, a final decision and project plan are elusive, because it's complicated and expensive, and there appear to be no deep pockets that are going to appear. Like Uncle Sam has not showed up with a suitcase full of money yet.
Yeah.
Do we already have the MBRC grant, or would they have to apply for that and go through the whole process?
We already have. We've had it for a couple of years now, I think.
But it was a grant to, the way it was applied for, if I recall correctly, is a grant to the town to do the Route 2 extension. So now you have to go to them and say, well, different route.
But they so far have not been hostile to that, right?
So different route initial feedback is they're open to that because it still serves the same purpose, which is to get sewer to the Willis Farm property, which in the application was the primary impetus of the reason for the grant was to increase development and business opportunity and job growth at that property. So kind of trying to make the point to them, it might actually be less expensive to go the school route and we still accomplish the same goals that we talked about. So they seem to be open to that. Where we haven't had a lot of feedback is if it were to be a private expansion. When we initially asked that, the answer was no, it has to be a public expansion. But then we came up with, well, if it's developed privately with an agreement to turn it over to the public, would that change the opinion from NBRC? Because ultimately it would be a public-private.
But if we don't really need to have it turned over to us, if it's going to stay private, if the land trust says you can't, right? I mean, like
if the land trust says you can't extend, then
what is the point of us owning it? Like,
right.
That's a good question. Yeah.
But if the land trust does say yay, we pretty much have to own it because you can't have two consecutive private lines.
Yeah.
School then private. And it is common in developments, not so much in Richmond because there hasn't been a lot of this form of development. But it's common for developers to say, I'll put in road, I'll put in sidewalks, I'll put in water, sewer, and then hand everything over to the local government.
So it's been fun. Comparisons to herding cats, though, are appropriate.
Okay. Consideration of approval of sending a letter to legislators regarding the financial impacts of potential new regulations regarding PFAS in wastewater.
So essentially, this is a letter to legislators to talk about if there were changes to the wastewater law that could potentially have costs to the wastewater facility, that we might be unfairly burdened with that, given the fact that the PFAS is coming from other sources and coming into the facility. The letter said we should continue to go after those other sources that are bringing it to the facility, but to make the facility have to remove all of the PFAS that comes through the facility could be cost prohibitive. So this was from, I think this came from VLC.
Yeah.
And they were recommending that anybody with either VLC or rural water, anybody with wastewater system should write to our legislature to inform them that there could be potentially negative effects to do it as well.
Significant costs.
Yeah.
Jay?
I move to approve sending a letter regarding the financial impacts of potential new regulations regarding PFAS and wastewater to Richmond state senators and state representatives.
Thank you, Jay. Do we have a second?
Bard, I will second that.
Thank you, Bard. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Jay, aye.
Morgan, aye.
Aaron, aye.
Bard, aye.
And David, aye. Motion has passed unanimously.
What is the technology behind removing PFAS? Okay.
I don't
PFAS is the hottest.
A wheelbarrow of money.
Yeah.
It is in everything,
Right.
everywhere. And some of the classes that I've sat in on it, I mean, they've done extensive study in the New Hampshire and Vermont together. And right in the middle of the White Mountains out in the woods, they took samples and they found PFAS in the soil, where the only way it can get there is precipitation.
Like acid rain. Huh?
So it's everywhere. It's getting into everything.
It's the forever chemical.
Yeah.
It is. There
Doesn't
there
break
are-
down.
That's why Canada doesn't want to take our biosolids.
And so, yeah, I mean, New Hampshire had an incineration plant for some of it, but that I think has gone away. But it is going to be something that's going to increase the cost of getting rid of biosolids in the future. And just be thankful that we don't have it in our water. We do test for it. They've all come back good. But if it does show up, I mean, it's millions of dollars to get it out. So,
What's the process of removing it?
there's a couple of processes that seem to work fairly well. Reverse osmosis, closed system, and then activated charcoal filtration.
Really?
System.
Okay.
Yeah. But there again, you end up with trying to dispose of the PFAS at the end. So you're going to end up with it there too.
Yeah.
So it just strikes me, it's easier to take it out of the water than it is to take out of the effluent, because
Yeah. I mean,
it's going to end up somewhere.
Right. But and I think there are rules that you can't, if you're removing it out of a water system, you can't dump it into your sewer system.
Oh, darn.
So,
Well, where does it go after it leaves the sewer system? Back into the environment. Yeah.
Upstream from the water.
Like asbestos, isn't
The new asbestos.
it? Yeah.
this one's man-made though.
Yeah.
I mean,
Remember dioxin?
Yes. Also man-made.
They had to basically quarantine whole towns because of that.
Update on Vermont Rural Water Association annual meeting.
We really just wanted to inform the commission the annual meeting is happening. Put the information in the packet. If any commission member would like to attend, you're welcome to sign up. I think it's a full day at Lake Lowry.
I was curious, is this primarily, would other select board equivalents or water and sewer equivalents go, or is it mostly just the operator staff?
I am not really sure. I've never been. Do you have any more insight?
mostly, yeah, I went last year. It's very informative, from most of the staff goes. There are actual classes that we take while we're there, but there's also a multitude of vendors that come in, and we're able to peruse all the newest things and, make inroads to people who have influent pumps or,
Yeah, I mean, I'm always interested in learning more, but if I would be the one non-operator type there.
It is, there are not a lot of commission members that come, but I know that you'd be very welcome.
The commissioners would run the plant and all the employees would go, right?
And the food is good.
What's a sliver do?
It's a good venue, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've done a lot of
beautiful.
things there.
And then Green Mountain has one in Killington, and later in the month, and it's the same basic thing.
Hey, purchase order and warrants.
Warrants and purchase orders. Anybody have any questions with the warrants?
No.
Motion to approve?
I move we approve the warrants as presented.
Thank you, Jay.
Second that.
Thank you, Aaron. Absent any further discussion, calling the motion to a vote. This is a motion to approve the warrants as presented. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
Jay, aye.
Morgan, I.
Aaron, I.
Bard, aye.
And David, aye.
And then we need to approve PO 4396, right?
Yes, purchase order 4396 to US Bank in an amount not to exceed $17,962.54.
And this is to continue paying off the Jericho Road project.
Yes.
I move we approve purchase order 4396 in an amount not to exceed $17,962.54.
I second.
Motion made by Jay, seconded by Morgan. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
It's Jay, I.
Morgan, I.
Aaron, I.
And David, I. Purchase order 4396 has been approved. Okay, let's go on to the minutes of March 20th. Did everybody have a chance to read the draft minutes as presented?
I did, and I think I just closed the folder. I think I had a correction. Apologies. Let me get that pulled up. Come on, computer, stop that. Minutes.
Well, Jay's pulling that up. Do you want to discuss? Oh, you're all set?
Go ahead and
discuss items for the next agenda. I've got budget conversation, septage rates, water meters, and perennial placeholder gateway expansion.
Yeah. I did find there are a couple things. Can you bring up the minutes page 6? It'll be easier just to point. I managed to get quoted saying the exact opposite of what I meant to say.
I hate it when that happens.
It's the second paragraph on page 6. Okay. I wound up saying I don't feel, especially like the air quality in that one building is beyond safe level. I do feel it's beyond safe level. Yeah, that was the main thing. It was just, yeah. Oh, actually, no, there's one other thing on page 10. I apologize. It's another where the meaning got reversed. Right above the words approvals of minutes and purchase orders on page 10. Right there where it says for, Canada's not going to keep taking this. There's no way the PFA levels are way beyond what they're willing to take. Again, that's the opposite. The PFA levels are way beyond what they're willing to take. The no way, I don't think should be on there.
Way.
I'm basically saying now they'll take that, and I don't think that's what I said.
Okay.
You got to start canceling out your double negatives.
And that's all I had. So I would move to accept the minutes as amended.
As part, I will second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, this is a motion to approve the draft minutes of the March 20th meeting with the page 6 and page 10 for corrections. Any further discussion? Hearing none, calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
This is Jay, I.
Morgan, I.
Aaron, I.
Howard, I.
And David, I. Those minutes have been approved as amended. Discussion of next items for the next agenda. So I have budget, discussion of septage rates, discussion of water meter replacement, and gateway expansion.
Do we want to keep inviting Steve and Alan back for updates on that? I don't want to make it a burden, but
I'm more than willing to come in and let you guys know what's going on.
We would appreciate it.
Feel free to stop by the plant.
The list of things, yeah.
I have no problems with that. I like to keep you guys informed.
We do appreciate the ribbon cutting on the stairs.
Okay, as soon as they're done.
I'm scared to ask, but what time are we going to start? I think we have some lengthy things to talk about next time.
I think it's going to have to be another 5 o'clock.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock next.
I move we adjourn.
Thank you, Jay.
Oh,
we have
Kara has a question.
Oh, go ahead, Kara.
When are you going to discuss your Q3 financials?
Next meeting.
So you'll discuss your Q3 financials prior to the budget talk?
Yeah.
I guess I kind of thought it was going to be part of it.
The budget, we could put that ahead.
Financials with the budget.
Yeah.
I think you might have, I'm just saying, you don't have a column on Josh's spreadsheet for that. So it's a review of the budget to actual for Q3.
Yeah, we can.
Unless you build that column and then you build it all together.
Well, right, we could put a column on the budget that would be Q3 to date of FY23. It would give us some information. Maybe won't give us everything. We're also going to have the separate sheet that we can reference to see where we at currently with FY23.
Yeah.
So we will have the information available.
Okay.
At least in another.
So I'll remove that we adjourn.
A second.
Okay, motion to adjourn made by Jay, seconded by Morgan. Calling the motion to a vote. Please identify yourself and signify your vote.
This is Jay. Aye.
Morgan, I.
Aaron, I.
Hard eye.
And David, I. We are adjourned at 6:55 p.m. Thank you, everybody.